to order, or we call to order and then you call to order?
Yeah, you can start.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Looks like we got a quorum for Ped Bike and Transit, so we are called to order.
And for Public Works, I
It's 6
also
o'clock.
call the meeting to order, 6:30.
Yeah, that time.
I was gonna ask Ben to do a quick roll call, in case he's seeing somebody online that I'm not seeing.
Sure. Chair Lang,
Present?
Member Bechtel,
Present.
Member Noor. Here. Member Reinhardt. Here. And Alder Myers.
Present.
Got a quorum.
All right, thank you. And you said you have quorum, so we can begin?
Yes.
Okay.
Though, do we have anybody online?
No.
Okay. We're just all here.
And our first agenda item is reviewing our minutes from the last meeting in January. Does anybody from Public Works have any comments or edits to those minutes? My only one, Ben, was I think you captured Alder Myers' future meeting agenda item. Does that include, it sounds like it kind of includes some of the things I brought up too.
Correct.
So if you want to just add my name to it,
Sure.
that would be it.
We can do that.
Okay. And then that will be it. With that one edit, we'll accept those meetings.
Chair Lang, your name is,
Did I miss it?
yeah, it can be combined with Lang's request for how consultants are solicited. However, your last name is misspelled.
Oh, okay. Missed that. There it is. Yeah. Thank you.
We'll fix that.
Okay. All right. Next agenda item is discussion debrief of high road design and public involvement meeting.
Should we be going over our minutes first?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't see it on the packet. Go ahead.
Daphne? Do we have any corrections or concerns about our minutes? All right, the Ped Bike and Transit minutes stand as read. First joint item, as you were saying.
Okay. Discussion and debrief of high road design and public involvement meeting. Just for everyone's awareness, we're not making any decisions tonight on this agenda item. We're going to hear a briefing from the design consultant. They're going to explain what data they captured for the public input meetings. Then we will open it up to any public comment at this meeting in addition to those. Then we'll have a discussion amongst the committee members, and our only action will be recommendations to the design consultant to continue with their design. So with that, I'll hand it off to Ben.
Thank you, Chair. So as many of you may know, we held our first public involvement meeting for the High Road project on January 28th. It was at Northside. We had really good turnout from residents and members of the public. On the call, we have Dan Perry from Veerbecker Engineers. So they are the consulting firm who is doing the design of this project. So I was hoping Dan can kind of give a high-level overview of what was presented at that meeting, along with kind of an overview of the project itself. In your packet, you have the memo that Veerbecker put together, along with the presentation and plan and profile sheets that were shown and shared at the public information meeting. So Dan, if you wouldn't mind jumping on and kind of giving an overview of the meeting and the project.
Sure. I hope you can hear me okay. And if you're getting any feedback, let me know.
A little quiet.
Okay, hang on. Let me.
You're gonna have to scooch behind all of you guys.
We're going to turn up the volume if possible.
Okay, and I'm going to plug in my headphones and get my direct mic.
Okay.
Where's my volume sound now?
Chair Lang,
It's a little better.
Gayatri is present remotely for the members present. For Public Works.
While we're waiting, Ben, can you add Gayatri as
Yep.
attending, in
I
attendance?
got it. Thank you.
Okay, try. Dan, can you say something again?
Yep. Test, test.
Yep, that's better.
Okay, good. Okay. Yes, again, Dan Perry with Veerbicker. We had our public info meeting. As Ben said, it was a good turnout. We have the plan and profiles that we put together were presented to the members there. It's a very early plan with just basically running through our kind of first crack at the typical cross section that we were going to, based on the RFP that we put together, that was put together. That's what we based the initial design on. Really just to then get the public's reaction and see what items we needed to address. I'm happy if you want to flip through these slides as well, and we can kind of, just real quickly, this is kind of what we talked about at the meeting, the project limits, the cost schedule, and then kind of wrapped up. So you can go to the next one, just keep scrolling through, it's fine. So we all know us there. There's some other people that were at the meeting from Veerbicker. Okay, so project limits, generally we're going to the north side is to the right of the screen here, that's Greenbrier Road. And then on the left side of the screen to the south is our project limits right at the end of the New Pheasant Crossing subdivision. And that is right now, it's a very narrow road or rural section that, and a hill on one side, and that we're going to urbanize into the wider section. So go to the next slide. Right now, you've got this cost allocated, but we're going to work as we refine this design. We'll have updated cost estimates that break this down into each budget category. And we're anticipating that later in April this year. So next slide. Here's the current schedule. Public Works tonight, and then water resources. Are working kind of hand in hand with MSA a little bit. We're going to do a handoff here on the stormwater design for this part of it. That'll be presented at the next water resources meeting. And then as we continue to move forward with our design, we'll present our options at these other meetings. And then currently, final design and permitting will happen in the second half of this year with bidding in early January and construction plan for next summer. And then, so as I mentioned, kind of this is the early, the existing section. You're very narrow, maybe 20 feet wide with ditches. And, you do have your sidewalk in some spots, and you've got a path and you got your future path in other spots. And then at the other existing section here is just your other urban section that you have running on High Road that we're kind of changing from and going to a little bit wider with the median. So we can go to the next slide. I think which should be the proposed details. Did it freeze? So then this is your proposed typical section that we were looking at. It has the wider median. Your travel lanes that are broken, northbound and southbound are divided by that median. We have an on-street bike lane with a 2-foot buffer, and then your curb and gutter, a nice terrace, and then on one side we'll have a 10-foot multi-use path. On the other side is a 5-foot sidewalk. The median option that we have here does allow for a nice left turn lane to be added where needed. So that's just kind of what the second one down there is. Also, you can see real quick, I can mention at a certain part of this project, you have wetlands on the east side that we would be impacting with our typical section. So I show that on one of those lines of about where it is kind of behind the curb. And then, so we would be filling wetlands with this current typical section. And that's something we'll have to kind of run through alternates with the DNR on. You can go to the next section. Yeah, that's the alternate with section with the wetlands there. Yeah. So you could, this is like an alternate, you could narrow it up, but it really changes the look of the road and what you'd want to do there, but it's something we need to run through with the DNR. So I just wanted to bring that up. And then this is kind of the stormwater overview of the different areas and kind of the options. I think the current idea is to put a bioretention basin near Bellefontaine intersection, and maybe some other upgrades and a oversized pipe somewhere might be able to get us the stormwater requirements we need. And we'll learn more about that at the February 18th Water Resources meeting. And then we had our active input session that went really well. We got a lot of sticky note comments that I have pictures of. I basically summarized all the comments we had from that and the kind of comment cards that were left onto an Excel spreadsheet. And I shared that with city staff. I don't know if that got out to everyone, but it certainly can if not, if you don't have it already. So with that, I think you can maybe go over to the memo. And I can just quickly say, a lot of the comments that we received in discussion was based on speed concerns from the public, especially coming down the hill. There was a lot of concerns that people are too fast and they won't be slowing down. There was pedestrian related comments that I would say are related to like where they wanted crosswalks. Do we want the rapid rectangular flashing beacons in certain spots? What's our trail connection access going to be? Will there be? And then there was there's also at least some construction related comments. At least one of them was about pedestrian access during construction. And I think, there's some offsite ones there that, we can talk about Greenbrier intersection and Spring Hill intersection. Just some concerns there with the traffic at those intersections and wondering if those can be, addressed somehow. That is kind of the comments in the nutshell. And then it kind of laid them out here in the memo that you guys can read. So I think in general, we're looking for the feedback from the committees here on what you'd like us to kind of investigate with staff and further study and come up with design options with our designs.
All right, thank you, Dan. I think at this time, if you're okay with it, we could open it up to
Comment?
public comment.
Is that what we're doing first?
We could do it either way. So if anyone is here from the public or representing the city on the Common Council, raise your hand and we'll recognize you, give you a few minutes to talk. Lisa, would you like to go? You're recognized. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Lisa Hanairo. I am the alderperson for District 6. I attended the meeting and I have some comments I'd like to share, and I did put these in my February newsletter that went out on the 1st. Just briefly, it's imperative that the sidewalk on the west side of High Road continue uninterrupted from the Misty Valley subdivision all the way to Spring Hill Drive. It wasn't clear from the design whether that will definitely be the case. I know there is one parcel of land that is privately owned and it is not located in the city of Middleton. So we don't have the authority to, we don't have the authority to condemn land for sidewalks anyway, but we don't even have a opportunity to assess a property like that for the roadway reconstruction. This is really important. We need to make sure we adhere to our complete streets policy, which I don't think I see in the memo from Veerbicker. But if we don't prioritize the needs of our most vulnerable users, we will fail to adhere to our complete streets policy. Also, something needs to be done about speeding on High Road. That's acknowledged in the speed comments showing on the screen. And it just seems like the design, I think it was called the typical cross-section, seems intended to give cars priority over pedestrians by doing things like building in left turn lanes. The left turn lane moves the cars that are turning left out of the way of those who are proceeding, so they have no reason to slow down or stop. And that, I think, is just going to create more opportunities for speeding. I mentioned in my newsletter County M, which after its reconstruction seems like you should be going 50 miles per hour at a minimum, but it's actually 40 miles per hour. It's a very wide, beautiful roadway that's doing nothing to encourage people to go more slowly. I mentioned the left turn lanes, including those in the design, really appears to prioritize the needs of cars over the needs of the roadway's most vulnerable users. And so I encourage the committees to rethink that. And then the timing of the project is going to be critical. It was originally intended to take place this year. And then for reasons that I understand, it was bumped to 2027. But that is also the year when we have the Century Avenue Bridge replacement happening. And to close off Century and High Road at the same time, I fear will repeat what we saw last summer when Parmenter was closed, High Road was intermittently closed, and the intersection at Century and Allen was just a mess. So I encourage the staff and the committees to think creatively about whether it is possible to bump this project back into 2026. We do have the funding. We didn't have to borrow that funding. It's in an escrow account. And so I encourage you to see if there's any way to do it this year instead of waiting until next year, or worse, postponing it until 2028. So we don't have two major roadways closed. And then finally, speeding on Greenbrier Road, as noted, is a concern, and we should try to address that if we can with our neighbor, the town of Springfield. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Anybody else from public, in person or online, have any comments or questions? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. Okay, I guess we'll open it up for committee members on either Bike or Transit or Public Works for comment or questions. Who wants to start?
Kristen?
I'll go ahead and start, and a lot of the issues that Lisa Haniro brought up were ones that I brought up at the meeting as well. I think half of the sticky notes that were filled out, if not more, were done by me. The way that the road construction is set right now is really promoting people to travel at speeds much higher than are safe, especially through neighborhoods where there are going to be a lot of kids going to and from school. One of this, on top of what Lisa had mentioned, one of the things that I had also recommended is that we need to plant trees in the median if possible. If we also got rid of that left-hand turn lane, we could have an area with more trees. Trees have been shown to calm traffic and slow traffic down. Also properly built raised crosswalks. I don't think that we're going to be able to do speed humps there, but properly raised crosswalks are going to be extremely important. If you look at where Northside Elementary is, just think about all of the kids going to and from school, and look what happened last week on Park Street in Madison, where a 17-year-old was killed, struck and killed by a driver. We really need to think about any upcoming projects preventing that from happening. So on top of everything that Lisa mentioned, she brought up a lot of the points that I had at the meeting. Planting trees, we need to do everything we possibly can to slow traffic. And I can't remember what is our law here in Middleton about, thank you, about how wide streets have to be, or vehicular lanes have to be. Some municipalities allow you to go down to 9.5 feet. Are we allowed to do that?
I think that's a question for Ben or to Dan.
Yeah, I can check if it's in our ordinance in terms of a minimum street width, but I can check.
Yeah, because it has been proven that the narrower lane the slower the traffic will go. And since this is not a road like Century or University, that could give the visual, that narrowness could give the visual that people have to drive more slowly. And what is the proposed speed limit for the entire road?
At this time, I don't believe speed limit has been proposed, but I would suspect 25 is what I would suspect.
Yep, so we need to build it so that a driver driving wants to go 25, not like on Whitney Way where it's 25, and everybody wants to go 45.
Okay, thank you. Anyone want to go next? Alder Myers, you're recognized.
Yeah, This likely won't be the balance of my comments, but I do have a few more to add on. When we're looking at this road, I want us to be careful about committing to placing speed humps or raised crosswalks in before we know what the 85th percentile speed is. If we put them in and the 85th percentile speed when we put them in is too high from an engineering standpoint, that could cause liability issues for the city. So I just want to make sure that when we put them in, we are following engineering standards. I think it would be helpful if VBICR were able to include design options for what it would cost to add either speed humps or raised crosswalks or some combination thereof, post-construction, and pre-construction and during construction, if we have traffic data that supports putting them in. If we don't have traffic data that supports putting them in, we will need to use other speed reduction measures first so that we can then put them in. And so I just want to make sure that the way we do this is one that conforms to engineering standards. So it's not that I don't support it, it's that I want us to do it in a way that meets engineering standards for the 85th percentile speed. I also want us to include an option. Well, actually not an option. I don't view it as particularly optionable. I want to see what the cost estimates are for completing this project by no later than Good Neighbor Fest, the way that we did with the Franklin Street reconstruction project. I'm not sure that we will be able to acquire the easements and get all of that through in time to put this in the 2026 road construction. But staff, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong about the timeframe for easement acquisition if we were to start tomorrow. And also, I'd just like to thank VBICR for including an option for a protected bike lane. I've been trying to get our city to have one of those since my visit to Amsterdam in 2023. So I'm excited for it as an option to explore with High Road. And I do also want to emphasize that we need to visually differentiate this road from the road that feeds into it, which has a much higher speed limit. So anything we can do to visually differentiate from Balzer Road is something that I'd support. I'll probably have comments, but I'm going to shut up now.
Good. Don, you're recognized.
One other issue with trying to get it done this year would be the fact that we'd be bidding it late spring, early summer, which is probably the worst time to be bidding road construction. Whereas the current schedule has us bidding in January of 27. We would be getting much higher costs and very few contractors that are willing to take on additional work.
Could you explain? Ooh, I'm too close. Could you explain why that is?
Because the majority of the contractors lock up what they're going to be doing early in the year, so they can plan for the entire year. And I think, Ben, you could respond to that as well, but Middleton has always had issues. If we bid late spring, early summer, we get much higher quotes.
All right.
Which really isn't advantageous to the city.
Then anybody else on our end? Kirsten?
I just have one quick thing to add regarding what Alder Meyer said. So just to kind of go over what a raised crosswalk's main duty is, it's not necessarily to slow traffic. A raised crosswalk is to bring somebody up higher, 6 inches off the ground, and improve visibility of that pedestrian crossing. Yes, it does slow traffic as well, but it has a different purpose than a speed hump.
Alder Myers?
Yes, I am well aware of that. However, we were discussing raised crosswalks in a specific context. I would recall your specific remarks that I was responding to, where you were also discussing them in that way. So I appreciate the correction and I appreciate you adding that. However, it is important to remember that when you are raising the surface of the road, you need to conform to engineering standards. And that is what I wanted to get across.
Okay. Thank you. I have a couple of comments and question if you don't.
And then I'll go.
Are you
after
gonna
you.
go? All right.
No, you go.
All right. Couple things. I agree with Alder Hanairo's, pretty much everything she said. Like recommending a narrower option. I would like to see a narrower option, possibly without turn lanes. I'm in agreement with the raised crosswalks or any traffic calming or method, preferably raised crosswalks. And I also like the idea of trees for traffic calming. I had a question, I don't know if this is for Ben, but the non-continuous path on the west side, I guess, how does the city intend to fill those gaps? And are we fairly confident that we can get those sidewalks all the way through?
So in particular on the west side of the road, correct. So there is one parcel that is not within the city. So as part of our design is we'll be reaching out to the homeowner through land acquisition, kind of that negotiation process to see, right, if that sidewalk can be continuous through that way, or looking at alternatives for how we can continue to move pedestrian traffic north-south on the west side of the road. So if it's not an exact sidewalk directly through that parcel, if it's around that parcel, what that would look like, but we're exploring all options at this point.
Around it being, couldn't we use the right, I mean, we just wouldn't have as much right of way?
Right. But I think due to the fact that it's not within the city, I think that could pose some issues.
Okay. All right. I was gonna get, Ted, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I have a bunch of notes and I have some sketches and I have some questions for people. Okay. Where to start? I would like to actually follow up on Alder Meyer's comment about the 85th percentile. That is a common engineering standard for speed design. I kind of see it as, oops, we messed up. So I would like to, acknowledging that that is the design, let's design for the 85th percentile to be 25 miles per hour, rather than hoping we get it right. With that in mind, okay, there are several considerations here. A background for High Road. It's marked as an urban collector in the 2006 Transportation Network Plan. That's page 24 of that PDF. That is the only street hierarchy I'm aware of that the city has. I have tried to find up-to-date street hierarchies on the city website numerous times. I cannot. This is the closest thing I can find. The most urban collector, if you're not familiar, there are three rough categories of streets. Arterials, yes, Daphne is showing my guess. I will get to that in a minute. But the colors are handy, actually. Okay, so we've got three categories of streets or roads. We have our arterials. These are for fast movement. We have at the complete opposite end, we have the local streets. These are all just the gray Google Maps streets on this picture. The arterials are in pink and brown. And then in green and then the green are minor arterials. These are also for speed, but they're for speed within the city. And then within orange, we have the collectors. These are in between. They tend to do neither thing well. If you've heard of the term strode, almost all strodes are collectors or minor arterials. Okay, the most recent traffic data for High, the only place we have it is the intersection just north of Century Avenue, so down right where it's with Middleton Hills. That's from August of 2022, and that is 2,600 vehicles per day. That might sound like a lot. It is not. That is broadly speaking, that works out to something like 100 vehicles per direction per hour, which is about one every 36 seconds. Background for Bellefontaine. So a good time to be on this. It was originally slated to be a 4-lane with a median. It has since been narrowed. I'm not sure about its classification. I'm assuming it's still a minor arterial. It is still large enough. It still fits the needs. It's still well suited to that purpose. But it's, as far as I can tell, again, as I mentioned, that's not noted anywhere that I've been able to find. With this thinking, Bellefontaine should take priority over High Road. So the next sketch I have has to do with the intersection of High Road and Bellefontaine. In the documents as presented by Verbeker, High Road has priority. It has 2 lanes and it has a full left turn lane. And I'm presuming there's stop control or something. We discussed laying conduit for future traffic light control. The first sketch I have here is, in a way, it's a little bit overkill, but let's start with that first. Okay, so what's going on is that Bellefontaine has priority over High Road. It looks a little bit roundabouty, but it's not. A vehicle on Bellefontaine can go straight through without stopping. A vehicle on High Road must yield in order to enter this intersection. If they are turning left onto Bellefontaine, they'll first enter right and do a U-turn. Same vice versa. So again, we do not have very many of these in the United States, but this is a well-studied intersection type. Within the United States, we have a longer stretched out version of this that has been used for several decades in neighboring states. It is sometimes called a Michigan left. So this is a well-researched intersection type. Again, it's a little bit overkill because this is assuming that Bellefontaine would be above 8 to 10,000 ADT eventually. That may not be necessary. This is one of those things where, in addition to having an up-to-date street hierarchy, we need to have an up-to-date traffic flow plan for the city. We don't really have a plan for where our traffic's gonna go. We're just kind of guessing. That's what it feels like on my end. It is extremely difficult to evaluate road diagrams like this when we're just guessing at where we'd like to end up eventually. So with that note, the next sketch, same intersection. This is Bellefontaine, isn't quite as busy. It's more compact. Within that, it has the advantage of not expanding the scope of the project. It is still yield controlled for High Road, but what you'll notice is the multi-use path crossings are elevated and drivers on High Road are yielding to pedestrians and cyclists crossing on them. These would be a little bit speed bumpy, not completely still cruise over them fast, in order to really there are 2 reasons. One, it helps make the pedestrians and cyclists visible, but 2, it makes motorists on High Road slow down before they then, after crossing the pedestrian and cyclist crossing, then yield to traffic on Bellefontaine. All right.
I'm sorry, Ted, can I ask a question?
Yes.
The traffic study numbers you were mentioning,
Mhm.
say it's fairly constrained.
Mhm.
Is the thought that once Bellefontaine is continuous to Schneider, that all of the Greenbrier traffic is going to shift to this? Because that will increase, well, the Greenbrier traffic going over to Parmenter, is the hope that it shifts to Bellefontaine? Because if it is, it's gonna be a lot of more traffic coming through this intersection,
Mm-hmm.
a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Can, is there a future thought that we want that traffic shifted from Greenbrier to Bellefontaine?
We haven't seen plans yet that Bellefontaine's connecting. Sorry, Daphne.
Yeah, so from what I recall,
Sorry, Daphne.
that's okay. Yeah, so from what I recall from like just our very general overview of like our official map and all of that, we do have plans, I believe, of connecting Bellefontaine now to Balzer, is that northernmost road. So it would eventually flow, so people could take Parmenter and then Bellefontaine eventually to Balzer. And so I think that is what is shown on our official map. And so, yeah, I think overall, you know, people living in those neighborhoods would be wanting to take Bellefontaine rather than Greenbrier up to the north. I believe Greenbrier is also just in the town of Springfield, so they also just have that rural cross section, kind of what High Road is currently. And so, yeah, it would, you know, eventually, you know, Bellefontaine would be built, it's built out with curbs and all of that. So it would be able to take that higher traffic load.
That's most of Northlake trying to get to the Beltline.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of traffic in the morning.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is what the first intersection is kind of thinking. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's why, right, we want to have a good idea of which of those two intersections we prefer long-term before we commit to one. Or at least build in such a way that if we change our minds, we can actually fix it. Yes, Thea?
Yeah, I'll just quickly echo Alder Meyer's endorsement of the protected bike lane. I too would love to see more protected bike lanes
Yeah.
here. I think it's an excellent place for a protected bike lane. To Kirsten's point, it would narrow the road, it would help calm traffic, Lisa's point as well. It's also just such a nice access point for biking in the country, and so I think it's a really excellent place to do that.
I agree. I'm sorry, I'm slow. I'm getting there. Okay. So related to that diagram, right. So now yes, 25, I think, is the right speed limit. It's a perfectly reasonable speed limit. I'm going to jump ahead. This is something I am not familiar with about civil engineering. Why are the curbs and gutters 2 feet wide?
Are you asking if they could be made narrower or wider or?
Narrower. Well, maybe we should jump to typical cross sections. Okay, so in this case, I've done some street mix typical cross sections. I've made the lanes 9.5 feet wide, but then when you have 2 foot and street mix doesn't have a gutter element, so I'm just using the buffer. When you still have that 10 feet, you still got an 11, the visual perception for a driver of an 11.5 foot lane. My problem with that is that an 11.5 foot lane is the size of a lane for a rural highway where the speed limit is 55. And people know that, and they're comfortable driving 55. We need that visual. We need as many visual cues as we can to get people to be. They can't tell they're driving 25, I guess is my point, unless we give them visual information that they are driving 25. So that's why I was curious. If we don't have the answer right now, that's fine. That's just an important element. That's also why I've significantly narrowed the median. Yes, 18 feet is nice again for a highway. But when you space drivers far away from each other, especially if they're the only one in their lane driving, they will again tend to speed. So it's a narrower median with trees so that they have, again, that visual information that they are going the correct speed. Actually, related to that, we probably need to, there's probably research out there for how far to space your trees so that people know how fast they're going. So we should look that up. Yeah, definitely protected bike lanes. I've also greatly expanded, you can see I've greatly expanded the space between the bike lane and the sidewalk. The issue I have with the cross section, with the typical cross section as designed by Veerbeker is that there is 10 feet of mixed path and then 10 feet before you enter the driving area. The average compact car is 14 feet long. Drivers do not stop behind stop bars because the sight triangle that we are using to place our stop bars seems to me to ignore the physical construction of an automobile. The main thing right in the driver's sight line to the left within that triangle is the A pillar of the vehicle. They cannot see. They cannot see oncoming traffic, and they will pull all the way up to the throat of that intersection so that they can actually see. That means that every car, from a compact car, maybe not a smart car, but every car bigger than a smart car will block the mixed use path every single time somebody wants to pull into traffic. As a result, by having this 19-foot wide section, the driver can first yield to people on the mixed use path and then pull past the mixed use path, pull all the way up to the throat where they're going to pull up anyway, and actually see traffic to then pull into it. So that is option one. And then I have that with left turn lanes. The left turn lanes in mine are directly, well, they're much more compact. I'm less concerned with that. Let's go to option two. Option two replaces the mixed use path with putting the sidewalks in the bike lanes. It again has that large area between the bike and sidewalk area and the actual drive so that motorists can yield and then yield as a two-step process instead of trying to do two things at once. I don't have a strong preference between possibility one and possibility two. They're kind of differences in what kind of cyclists we're planning for. Possibility one is casual recreational cyclists and on the mixed use path, and confident cyclists on the bike lanes. This possibility is all cyclist types in the bike lanes. There are details here that I've been thinking about since discussions with Kirsten about where cyclists go that inform each of these choices. I've already talked a long time. So that's maybe for another thing. This is again a kind of a detail-y thing. I personally tend to not want raised crosswalks across High Road itself. Again, there are complicated reasons about who's supposed to be yielding to who and wanting to use raised crosswalks to specifically signal who has priority over who. I would like raised crosswalks over every single cross street going along High Road. Absolutely. That's awesome. Again, they should be somewhat speed bumpy in angle and recessed so that drivers can yield to pedestrians, cross over them, and then enter the intersection to then yield to drivers. A two step process instead of trying to do two things at once. The large amount of space means we don't have to have just 21 and a half going straight. We need that only really at intersections, so we could have the drive lanes chicane that is horizontal deflection so that drivers have to slow. They don't just have a nice drag strip to throttle down. They have to slow down and drive through curves. So that's available. And then the last detail is that a lot of the left turn curve radii are very large, appropriate for rather high speeds, and I would like to see them tightened to actually force drivers to slow down. Okay. Alder Myers.
I just had a quick question for staff because I can't remember it offhand. Do we allow heavy trucks on high road by ordinance?
No.
No? Okay, great. That makes the 9.5 width a lot more feasible since
Yeah.
we don't allow it by ordinance already. If we did allow it by ordinance, then there would be another conversation we'd need to have.
Yeah. Just as background for everybody, 9.5 over mirrors is the largest width non-wide load vehicles can be.
Yeah.
Do we have other comments? Yes. Mary.
I'll just ask a question because everyone is very familiar with all of these things and I'm just learning as we go for sure. But so Veerbecker originally included the left turn lane on High Road. Like, is that an industry standard? Obviously, everyone on this that has given their input so far is are prioritizing pedestrian safety and limiting speed. But I'm just curious, like, depending on what the traffic study is, and we're counting this as like essentially a cut through for people, how much is the priority of like the traffic flow being set at the forefront of the consultant's mind during this road design compared to what we're talking about in terms of like street culture and pedestrian safety?
Sure. Dan, do you want to chime in in terms of the why turn lanes were included, or as an option at least?
Yeah, it was so early on that we were adding them in there. I guess, yeah, kind of as just a typical with the median option that we were given, and knowing, I mean, perhaps it sounds like our assumptions maybe were a little off than what the committee members have here, because I was kind of interpreting High Road being more the priority. And so, yeah, and then you do kind of have to look at the level of service from the TIAs that were done with all the subdivisions. And I believe they had some recommendations for the left turn lanes in here, but I don't have a good answer probably of, yeah, left turn lane should absolutely be in here at this time. I think it's something we got to go back to the drawing board and say, do we really need the left turn lane then in here? And what's the appropriate size here?
Yeah, I guess Dan, if you are considering like future growth through Bellefontaine at that intersection, a roundabout there would probably it would eliminate the need for a left turn lane, right?
Right there, yeah. But the space for a roundabout would be your the next thing you look at. But
well, Dan, do you have any comments based on what you've heard from the committee?
no, I've been diligently taking notes. This was great feedback. I think we can meet with staff on a lot of on these items then, and kind of come up with design options here for the rest of this. I don't have any comments or questions. This is great feedback. I will just take it and work with staff on the comments and try and revise the design.
Should we expect to see like a design revision in April with some additional options to review?
That would be our expectation. Yeah.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, we would definitely have new design with different options on here. I mean, at this point, we don't really, you know, the design at this point was really preliminary. We didn't even have the design options come up with yet. The point, and I guess the purpose that we wanted to get to at this point was throw something out there and then get get the feedback so we can design the right options versus guessing and not having the right ideas out there. So this is the feedback that we needed so we can design this appropriately.
Okay. Any last thoughts from the committees? I'll start with Alder Myers.
Yeah, just on the subject of the protected bike lane, I do think that that is critically important to include in any of our design options, because this part of High Road feeds into the next part of High Road, which feeds into Park Street, which feeds into Cromrie Middle School. And Public Works, as a committee, has identified the point of High Road and Park Street and Century Avenue as a critical piece of a critical piece of our city infrastructure to address from a standpoint of pedestrian safety. So if we are looking at this from a standpoint of safe commute corridors for students, it's important during this section of reconstruction to make sure that we get the layout right for a protected bike lane that we could potentially extend all the way down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just, I know I've said this 2 or 3 times, and Thea, I think you've mentioned it. Kirsten, I think you've mentioned it. Tad, I think you've mentioned it. I just wanted to put together why here specifically and why I think it's so important for us.
Okay. All right. Any last thoughts? Lisa, did you want to comment again? You're recognized. And then Tim, you had your hand up? Yeah, after Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Going back to the slide showing the where the sidewalk might need to be diverted a little bit because of the single parcel that's in the town of Springfield. I think it's really important for the design to be modified in the event that we can't get the right of way where we want it to be for that sidewalk. In other words, it would be unacceptable to have kids cross High Road at that point and then continue down High Road all the way to Northside Elementary and have to cross again to get to school. I think if we have to shrink the median or get rid of the median or do something creative with the road itself in this area in order to make sure that sidewalk is continuous, that is what I would advocate doing.
And Tim, did you have a comment?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to bring up the fact Lisa had a good point on the timing and duration of the reconstruction with Century construction going on there. Do we have a good understanding of private development, what's going on in that area, along with this construction in Century Ave? Because Pheasant Branch already can be dangerous, especially in the summer and fall months when it's nicer people going back and forth with the Conservancy. And that already has speed problems. So just food for thought.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Dan, for the presentation, and thank you to all the committee members. I think that was a very productive discussion. I think we are mostly in agreement with our comments and recommendations as well. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Anything on this topic?
Nope. Well, I guess North Seago has those nice concrete bike lanes and it has more traffic than High Road, so we can do it. All right. Next item.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next agenda item. Discussion of no turn on red sign at High Road and Century Avenue. Ben, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This was a joint request that the Public Works and Police Department received from a resident in the area pertaining to pedestrians crossing Century Avenue at the intersection with High Road. And one thing the resident requested was the installation of a no turn on red sign, similar to what you can find at a few other intersections throughout the city. So staff looked at the MUTCD, which is kind of the guide for traffic control devices, and found that this intersection meets several of the requirements or recommendations for what conditions should exist for a sign like this to be appropriate. So, right, it's I think a first step in terms of looking at ways we can improve the safety at this intersection. I think long term, as Century Avenue is redeveloped and as redone in 2029, as we look at other design options for that intersection, this would be a low-hanging fruit in terms of things we can do to kind of highlight the needs of pedestrians and kids crossing at that intersection. So staff are recommending that Public Works and Bike and Transit recommend to L&O and then the council for an ordinance resolution to install a sign like that. And we've also included an example of what a sign would look like.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're gonna look at that picture right now.
This was taken, I believe, in some different municipality. I think our sign would probably just say no right turn on red, a little more broad rather than just when kids are present. But
Okay.
that's the general gist. But happy to answer any questions.
We have some hands up. I think I saw Alder Myers. You did
No,
first.
Brad beat me to it.
I was one of the few people who actually sent this sign in. And I know it was coordinated with Lisa. So if you were to say no turn on red, because I don't believe there are issues at this intersection, except for 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the afternoon. The rest of the time it's fine to turn on red. Is there a municipal reason why we can't use the when children are present?
No, no, we certainly could.
You
We certainly
could,
could.
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not recommending one way or the other.
sure.
I kind of like the message this is giving.
Yeah, yeah, no, understood.
But either would be effective.
Okay.
Alder Myers.
Yeah, so I view, and Ben, we've talked about this outside of the meeting, but I view this sign as a necessary first step for safety in this intersection. The Public Works Committee has looked at and evaluated this intersection for a number of different more permanent solutions and more prominent solutions. Ben, could you, if you know it offhand, let both committees know the cost for upgrading all 4 signals at this intersection to contain leading pedestrian interval programming?
It's north of $60,000.
So, for some context, for the other, the Ped Bike and Transit Committee members and perhaps, 1 or 2 of our new Public Works Committee members, this puts that cost really does put the signal intersection upgrade, in a category of something that would be better from a budget standpoint to do either A, when we receive grant funding, or B, to do as part of a larger road construction project, because it's easier to make the money happen for that sort of upgrade. So this is, we're looking at this, or at least I'm looking at this as something that we can do now to start setting those expectations with the understanding that we will be upgrading to LPI programming as soon as it is financially possible. And if finance and personnel wants to find $60,000 for that intersection, I will enthusiastically vote for it on council. But until that happy day, this is what we have available.
Did you have something?
Yeah, With that, being added, when we do, redo the light, could we do something similar to what Spring Harbor and University Avenue has in Madison, where it actually has when pressing the walk signal, that it actually has the turn light with the red through? I don't know if anybody has seen that. But it's very visual for drivers and they really do tend to adhere to it.
Yeah, that was actually brought up as well, and they've recently installed one in Sun Prairie. So yeah, I can reach out and find out costs. But yeah, that absolutely would be something we could look at as well.
I'm in favor of anything we can do at this intersection to improve safety. It needs all the help it can get. We had a mother 2 years ago come in here and tell us a story about a child almost getting hit near miss at this intersection. And very little was done since then. So anything we can do there is good, in my opinion. Charles?
Yeah, I was going to make a motion to recommend to the License and Ordinance Committee the inclusion of a no turn on red sign or a no turn on red when children are present sign at this intersection, following a recommendation from the police, following recommendations from the police department about which they feel most comfortable enforcing, and public works staff.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have both committees do this in parallel, or should we go through ours first?
I think in the past, we've done you guys and then us, and I don't
Yeah,
know
this is-
how it matters.
Yeah, I'm just offering this for discussion, so
Okay.
as a motion, so.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion on that motion from either committee? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to a vote for the Public Works Committee members. All those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Please say no. The motion carries.
On the Ped Bike and Transit side, do we have a parallel motion to that effect?
This is Kirsten, my motion.
I'll second.
And all right, all those in favor?
Brad,
say-
second.
All right, those opposed? None. All right, we carry ours.
Okay. All right, moving on to the next agenda item. Number 4, discussion of outline and maps of active transportation plan. Who's taking this?
I'm taking this
All
one.
the time.
Okay,
All right, so I put together a couple slides. I know we have a packed agenda tonight, so I'll try to be as brief as I can on this.
Mr. Chair, I'd recommend, or I'd request a 5-minute recess so that members can attend to personal needs. We've reached an hour.
is that all right?
Sure.
All right, we'll take a 5-minute break and return at 7:38. Thank you.
Public Works Committee tradition after 1 hour.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I needed this against that. It's like 2 minutes.
Yes.
All right. Can everybody hear me?
Are we back online? We're good? All right, let's bring the noise down a little bit and we're gonna get started on the active transportation plan.
All right, everybody, my name is Scott Heacock. I'm an associate planner with the city, and I've been taking the lead on drafting the active transportation plan and have a couple of things in your packet that we wanted to get some review and feedback. No emotions or anything like that tonight. This is meant to just get some of that more detailed discussion going about the plan. Because we're doing this in-house, it gives us the luxury of taking things in smaller bite-sized chunks that we can talk through. So for an overarching view into what the project goals are, these are two of the mentions from our comp plan about the active transportation plan. The first one really focusing on identifying throughout the system the linkages that we can create through new trails and paths. And the second one about adopting and actively referring to an updated plan for additional policy and action statements. Daphne, you want to go to the next slide? So in the October meeting as a review, we really dove headfirst into those maps. Thank you all for your feedback that you provided on that in your pack. Or I believe there's issues that getting uploaded to the packet, but that should have been sent around to everybody with the updated version of that. Next slide. And it looks something like this. There might be some final formatting tweaks that we'll do to make it more friendly to the general public, but this represents what we've heard so far about what the priorities are for the future in terms of new linkages within the overarching system. Next slide. Additionally, in your packet, you'll see some other maps that I'm very grateful to Daphne for having put together. One of our sidewalk gaps with prioritization based on guidance from the comp plan. Challenging intersections, that's based on public feedback that we got from a survey of the intersections that were identified most often, and a transit network map that shows a quarter-mile radius around each bus station and the future land uses there. That's meant generally as a check for in our future higher density mixed use developments, is our transit serving those? And generally the answer is yes. Next slide. So for this meeting, I'd really like to dive into the overarching goals and strategy for the plan. After reviewing the 2009 plan, the comp plan, public comment, and budget and other discussions that have happened on these committees, really tried to boil it down to the overarching goals and strategies that the city is taking to promote active transportation. The goal of this plan is, or there's multiple goals of this plan. We want to make these topics accessible to the general public. One thing at the kickoff meeting for this plan way back when, before my time actually with the city, was a shorter document that was able to really describe the reasons why we're moving forward on these things. But also we want to make it detailed enough that for city staff or elected officials that are evaluating different programs and policies, that we can really root it in these broader whys and goals and be able to succinctly describe the actions the city is taking. Daphne, if you want to take the next slide. And as an excerpt for what these will look like, this is the strategy related to the missing links map that we worked on at the last joint meeting. The goal of these different one-pagers would be able to format them in a way that would easily be able to get clipped, added to different meeting packets, or used in whatever context is needed to help describe to people the actions and goals of the city. It's a little bit more accessible than, or it's a lot more accessible than the previous plan where it had a lot of good content, but it was very much a very long list of bullet points that's hard to get folks to really dive into and read. We have updated the timeline a little bit here based on some feedback that we got from the committee about wanting to build in more public input on the back end, and also just to align with where we are now. So today, talking through some of those, the maps that were in the packet and the overarching goals and strategies. In March, we would take the completed draft to Ped Bike Transit to get a review on the content within it. In April, we would circulate an updated draft to all of the relevant committees and common council to propose changes to make sure that we're on the right track prior to asking the public to weigh in. The goal of this approach is to make sure that the version the public weighs in on is most reflective of what the city's position is on these topics. The month of May would be for public input. Right now, I'm proposing 2 open houses, a public survey, and any other public input opportunities that the committees here decide that we'd like to pursue. We would incorporate that public feedback into a final draft of the plan that the public or Ped Bike Transit Committee would review and recommend adoption to Common Council targeting June 16th. Couldn't quite hit adopting the plan during Bike Week. That was a thought at one point. That would have been pretty fun. So next slide. We don't need to go over each and every one of these questions. I just put these together as to get the conversation started. What I would like to get tonight is just general feedback on, is this on the right track? Are there specific things that you want to see in that first draft of the plan? Or any questions or concerns about anything in the packet today? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Charles, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll just break the ice and then I'll probably have something else at the end. Scott, first, thank you for all of your work on the active transportation plan. We've talked about it a few times. I know just how much has gone into this. One thing that I would like to see is more public input periods earlier in the process. I understand not wanting to involve everyone while the committees are still getting together for a final recommendation, but I actually think that putting a public input period very early in the process is going to be beneficial for the committees as well. In Public Works, at least, whenever we've had interested citizens show up to our meetings over the years, we've benefited tremendously from it as a committee. So if there is a way to add another public input session, either as part of the committee reviews in March and April, or standalone after Ped Bike and Transit has a rough draft out in March, I'd love to see that. Otherwise, I think the timeline's good. I just think that early and often is the best time for public input.
Great, thank you. And just point well taken. Extra context for public input to date is that there was a survey that went out in late 2024, early 2025. And additionally, we've been incorporating a lot of the public input that has been going into the Madison MPO's active transportation plan review. But, particularly on this plan, point well taken. I think especially the maps are a good point where we could have folks taking a look at those and helping identify particular spots in the city. My struggle is always, I hate to bring something to folks, go back and then go back out again, and sometimes leads to confusion in the planning process, but
yeah, it can. That's a real risk, and I do appreciate you bringing it up. It's just for something like this, I think we'd really benefit from more participants in the deliberative process at an earlier date. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scott, I also think this is a really excellent start. I appreciated the formatting. I love the goals. I have little +1s and heart next to a lot of your goals. So really, really spot on with the goals. I also like the one-pager strategy. I found it very digestible and easy to understand what you were suggesting, the different components. I want to ask one clarifying question before offering other suggestions, and that's just the intended purpose of the plan. Is this active transportation plan more aspirational? Is it a roadmap? Or is it a series of concrete recommendations that we, tackle when we have the financing available?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of all the above. The one thing it's not is it's not a budget. It's not a, specific capital improvement plan where we put things on a timeline and dates. It's meant to look more overarching of the system and say, here's the missing links, and then follow up and provide guidance to staff on the topics and strategies that are a priority for the city to have staff pursue further.
You have a couple to.
Yeah, I just also wanted to thank you. Lots of good stuff in there. I particularly appreciated the local street and the regional connection section. That's something that I care a lot about, and I wish that we were more integrated into a larger kind of greater bike network. I was curious how you determined the priorities for the regional connections there. If there was any reason those in particular, or
Yeah, so on the maps we went over in October, those formerly were planned and conceptual.
Gotcha.
As we've circulated those, we had a lot of folks asking, what does that mean, and et cetera. So simplified it down to tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 being ones that have been in plans for a pretty long time and carrying forward into this plan. Tier 2 being either newer proposed ones that would require more detailed analysis of the constraints and challenges along them, or one prominent example of the Good Neighbor Trail or the rail corridor. That's an idea we want to hold for the long term, but also want to be realistic that that's not going to happen anytime soon due to a variety of reasons. So that was the general, or that's how we came up with those different tiers.
thank you. Kind of related follow-up. I was wondering if during that whole process there was any discussion on, I believe it's the North Mendota Shore Path, extending on Century and then into County Road. And I think,
Are you talking about going out of the city to the east?
yeah,
that gap where
around Mendota, past Bishop's Bay.
Got it. So there's two parts to that. There's one that there's a section where we weren't able to get the right of way. So that's a gap that there's a local connecting street that serves that purpose, but ideally long term we would be able to complete that segment. The rest of that path is built out all the way to the city limits, and so we've been talking with Dayton County to make sure that that gets extended all the way around. So that's something that we would actively want to be monitoring and doing what we can to promote it.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Kirsten?
Just on that, because we were just talking about North Mendota, what property did not give right away? I know Holy Wisdom did, of course, T-Wall did. What section?
Outside of the I'm talking about the section where
Between the two Highland.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, we're Cedar Ridge Road, we have to
Yeah.
take Cedar Ridge Road, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
that was the section I was referring to where you couldn't get the right of way there. Outside of there, I think
Cause I think it's set, it's
they
all agreed upon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Exciting. Sorry, I did not know that. That's exciting. Thank you.
And I want to thank you too. This was done really well. When we have our open houses, I would like us to have a formal invitation for Madison Bikes to be included, which is the Ped Bike Transit Advocacy Group in Madison, and they're extremely active. Lots of alders, people who work with the DOT, because we are talking regionally here. And so I would really like to put out a formal invitation to have them be a part of our open house.
Great suggestion. Thank you.
Charles?
Yeah, I'm back for my second bite on the apple. Scott, under the additional maps section, bicycle and pedestrian crashes, locations where crashes have happened 2020 through present. I 100% support inclusion of this sort of map in the active transportation plan. But I do think it's important to make the map as useful as possible, both for pedestrian cyclists, planning staff, city staff, and city committee volunteers who look at it at a glance as a reference guide. And to that end, I think we do want to differentiate between the pedestrian and bicycle collisions that reasonable engineering approaches could have prevented, and pedestrian and bicycle collisions where it was a drunk driver or there was another factor, which is something that realistically speaking, we would not be able to have engineered the road to prevent, i.e., negligent driving, gross negligent in driving, driver intoxication, that sort of thing. Just so that when we're looking at the map, and maybe we have two maps, one map that is the ones that we could have reasonably prevented, and then the other collisions where someone did something that realistically speaking we could not have addressed with like a proper road design.
Thank you.
Okay. I just have a general comment that I really like the way this is put together. It's very simple, easy to read. I agree with the strategies, kind of echoing what Thea said. All the strategies are great. And just to clarify, also what she brought up was how this was going to be used. Just as an example, one of the strategies is prepare for bus rapid transit extension. Would that be a situation where, as we're building to the north, we expect there to be a bus route, maybe going up High Road, or we would want a bus stop along there somewhere? This is a plan, not a policy. So this is just something where it wouldn't be required for a design consultant to use, other than to just look at, because it's like a living document, right?
Yes, to be a living document. This wouldn't be, fixing us to a certain situation, but, I think that's twofold, where we know at some point the Madison Bus Rapid Transit is going to extend into Middleton. So we want to make sure that we have some ideas for what we're hoping to see out of that. And also, a few years ago, there was an idea for an internal bus circulator to get folks around Middleton a little bit better. And that's something that I think is outside of the scope of this plan to set a specific route for that, or whether that would go to the northern subdivisions. But certainly in that section of the plan, I've been anticipating including a vision for, we need to consider getting to the north side of the city as that area develops, and also trying to hit at least all of our major mixed use areas within the city, because that's where transit really thrives. And to study that further, to set that as a priority for the city to be prepared for that rather than just reactive, especially because transit is something that we don't really handle in-house. And so having our own ducks in a row for what our preferred outcomes from that would be particularly helpful for the city.
Okay. But once it's approved, it's just going to be like a reference point. When we do ask for maybe a bus stop or something, we're going to say, reference this active transportation plan to say why we think it needs to go in there, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That's all I had.
You can reference two Ped Bike and Transit meetings ago, the December meeting, if you're curious about what we're thinking for, or mostly me, but for the bus circulator. Kirsten, did you have something else?
Well, I just wanted to say the Aldermeyer's idea of separating the types of crashes that occur, because then we're actually playing with the Vision Zero program that Madison adopted. And when we're pulling that out and saying, what could have we done? Like if we're looking at an accident or crash, and yes, if it's on a design issue, we can then start thinking, what can we do in the future to prevent that from happening again? And Madison's been doing that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Can you share more about the plans to put the bike lane on University and why it stops at, why it doesn't extend downtown?
Stops at Branch.
Stops at Branch, yeah, versus
Yeah.
extending.
In the University Avenue corridor plan, that was the segment that was proposed during that plan, so we just pulled that forward into this. I believe the reason for that is after you get past Branch, there's issues with acquiring the right of way and a lot of different conflict points that would make that harder.
It's specifically the newer apartment building across from the co-op. We do not have, they built it too close to the road. So we do not have the space to continue the path.
Okay.
Is it Peregrine?
It's the Kestrel.
Or Kestrel? I knew it was a bird. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. We do not have space unless we do a road diet in the road.
Yeah.
And I would just encourage all of us to be thinking about how we connect the university bikers with those who want to go downtown, because it doesn't currently look like there's that conduit there.
Yeah. And to that point, this is not the ideal connection, but that's the benefit of Franklin and Elmwood being more of those local connecting streets is, they can kind of serve as a parallel route along University rather than having bikers take University itself and where there's a lot more conflict points, taking them one block off and having that as their route east-west is a next best at this time.
Bike lanes on those streets, I think
Yep.
would work out nicely.
Great.
Don,
Yeah, I have a concern about taking the accident reports and dividing them up into, well, if we'd have designed it differently, we could have prevented that accident versus, well, an accident is an accident. If it's a drunk driver, or if it's a truck, or whatever it is, but liability issues come into play if we sit there and publish a document that says, well, this was a design error on the city's part. And it could have been prevented had we designed it differently. You're just asking for issues.
While I understand your concern, there's no reason private citizens couldn't start doing that right now. They can start educating themselves and start. I'm not sure about all the legal avenues in that regard, but like this is starting to become more widespread knowledge. Anyway, Charles.
Yeah, I think the way to address that concern and in general is to do that pending a conversation between planning staff and the city attorney about the potential for liability. And then we can look at it.
That would be my concern. Just make sure legal is involved in that
Mhm.
decision-making process.
Absolutely.
Again, you don't want to sit there and advertise.
And Madison actually just put out a packet regarding the crash that happened with a 17-year-old. And the city of Madison is taking a fair amount of fault for poor road design on South Park Street. Because since 2023, there have been 5 crashes involving pedestrians.
Actually,
So-
this year, I think 5 accidents of late.
So
So sending this over to Matt would satisfy
Yeah.
your concerns?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. Any other questions or comments to Scott? All right, I don't think we're taking any action. Scott, do you have anything for
Nope.
us?
Thank you all for your feedback. I'll particularly try to find a way to work in some earlier public input. Because it sounds like we're on the right track with these goals and policies, maybe we can put out a public survey that more specifically asks about these strategies earlier on in the process, and then our open houses can focus on the maps where that's a more interactive activity for folks.
Yeah, I just ask that you also, when you send out that survey, include an option to give feedback in person at the relevant committee hearings as well.
Sure.
Some people may decide they want to do that because the survey doesn't fully capture what they'd like to include in their comments.
Got it. So thank you all for the feedback. We'll work it into it, and I'll get writing away so we can get that, hit the deadline for March, first draft to review.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Our next agenda item is a discussion on policy process on adding sidewalks to neighborhoods. Ben, are you taking this one?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I will start this. This came at the request of Alder Meyer, so he may have some more context. But in particular, the kind of the question or thought that we'd like the committees to consider is when we're resurfacing streets in neighborhoods where sidewalks do not currently exist. And oftentimes, city staff will run into possibly opposition from neighbors or the neighborhood regarding installation of the sidewalks, but then that obviously goes kind of in conflict with our complete streets policy. So included in your packet is obviously the complete streets policy, which we are familiar with, but then I also included the city of Sun Prairie kind of has been having similar conversations with its residents, with its committee in regards to what their policy or approach is to adding sidewalks. So currently there, anytime there's a new development or a complete reconstruct of the roadway, both sides of the road will get sidewalks. Anytime there is a resurfacing, so it's you're not completely redoing the street, but you're just redoing the pavement essentially. Sidewalks will be added onto one side of the street, which is kind of viewed as a compromise, I guess. But then obviously, I think then you run into neighbors maybe not wanting it on one side if they have snow removal concerns or whatever it may be. So I think that at least is something staff are looking to the committee for direction if a formal policy document is something that the committee would entertain. I know we mentioned sidewalks in our comprehensive plan with the planning department, but yeah, open to any and all suggestions or if the committee has a different approach that they'd like staff to take.
Okay, Charles?
Yeah, so some additional context is that twice on the Landmarks Commission, actually, for two separate areas. And Daphne, you were at both of these. We've gotten very hostile feedback from residents about the possibility of adding streets to their adding sidewalks to their neighborhood. The words "an attack on us by the city" were uttered during one of them. If I'm remembering that right, Daphne?
I think so. I guess it's all been reported.
Yeah. Now, I don't see making a neighborhood walkable as an attack on anyone, but I do think that it's a conversation that our committees need to have so that we have something on paper saying, well, when city council passed, and if it needs to go back to city council for a revision of the complete streets policy, then, that's what we need to do. But if we intended for all of our streets to be complete, the time to do it is when we're either resurfacing or doing a full reconstruction, rather than just trying to retrofit over a road that, is otherwise serviceable. And so it's better for us to have this conversation now and get the policy clearly spelled out on paper than to go to a neighborhood at the public hearing for the public meeting for their resurfacing or reconstruction project and say, oh, by the way, there's going to be a public hearing where we're assessing you $500 for your sidewalk. Because based on how that's gone during landmarks, that's not a fair position to put Brandon as the chair of Public Works in. So I'm looking for us to give staff guidance and potentially guidance to city council on what the Ped Bike and Transit Committee and Public Works Committee would like to see happen.
And that,
Don?
yeah, that also has happened in Public Works numerous times, where hostility and or other reasons as to why we don't want sidewalks in front of our house. The latest one that was not provided sidewalks was when we did that area along Donna's Drive, 4 or 5 years ago? 3 years ago, maybe. I don't even think you were on the committee at that point.
Then it would have been 3 to 5 years. 'Cause
So,
I joined in
yeah.
23.
Yeah, and it was a very hostile environment and the committee chose not to place sidewalks on one side of the street.
Because of that?
Oh, yeah. And it's happened on another one that was supposed to be scheduled for reconstruction that just got delayed. Again, hoping that as time goes by, they would realize the benefits of sidewalks, which the street still hasn't been done.
So just a question, does our complete streets policy require sidewalks for any reconstruction?
I believe it does, doesn't it not then?
For
Yeah.
reconstruction, yes.
Yeah,
We're talking about maybe like resurfacing.
these are
And other-
reconstruction projects with a lot of curb and gutter as well, so.
So it seems simple to me if we have a policy already for
Well,
reconstruction.
Again, you're
I know,
satisfying citizens at the time of the meeting.
yes, part of our job isn't just to satisfy them, it's to follow the policy.
Agreed.
So, but I'm not sure, are you asking?
I'm just
This group
commenting,
to-
as he mentioned, with the historic group, the problems that they've had. We
Right,
had the same thing in Public Works as well.
do you think this group needs to make a change to the policy that maybe includes sidewalks for lesser type?
No, I like the
No.
policy.
You like the policy, okay, thank you for clarifying.
And Sean Alsrud, one of our city engineers, has his hand raised on the
Oh,
Zoom.
okay, thank you. Yeah, Sean, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a couple mentions. So we have our sidewalk maintenance program. Historically, adding in sidewalk has been part of that program, not the road reconstruction. There's some specific reasons that we do not replace sidewalk on road reconstruction or resurfacing, and it's because we have a sidewalk maintenance program already in place. Aside from whether or not residents are in favor or against having sidewalk put in front of their house, the issue that we've run into has been that we will charge or not charge property owners. And over the years, that's been a mix. But my thought has always been that the city policy is that the property owner is the maintaining authority. But when you buy a new house in a new subdivision, the developer is the one that has put the sidewalk in. So I think part of what needs to be addressed is clarification to whether or not the city pays to put in that new sidewalk. Once it's in, then the property owner becomes the maintaining authority of it. That was all I had.
Okay, thank you, Sean.
Brad?
How much of the city does this really apply to that we don't have sidewalk?
We have that neat,
It's in the
nice
packet.
map
Did
on
I
the
skip right over it?
That was on my agenda, but it also.
conveniently.
Why it's good that we.
Sean, your volume, if you were talking, it was hard to hear you.
I apologize. I'll try turning that up.
Do you want this? So we have a question about how much sidewalk is lacking in our city.
Yeah, so this is an updated version of the sidewalk gap map that was in the comp plan and has been updated with sidewalks that have been added since then. Additionally, in the comp plan, it just shows the gaps themselves. This version shows, if you take the prioritization that's in the comp plan, where all of these lie, so, cul-de-sac bulbs and ones that aren't really connected to other things are a lower priority, or if they're further from a school, versus ones that are on, higher stress streets or closer to schools, as just a couple of examples that go into it. So this is where the extent of them are. I believe the section that's been referenced for the landmarks is Columbus Drive area, which is right next to the creek corridor over there, which based on the comp plan guidance would be a lower priority.
I guess my question was more for this policy, because I know we're lacking sidewalk in lots of places where we need to put it, but this specifically is talking about homeowners and its impact on them. Is that broken out and I'm still not seeing it?
So this is everything throughout the city.
Like as an example,
yeah,
Cooper Road, no sidewalk. We would love a sidewalk, but that's not impacting homeowners. That stretch.
Yeah.
So is there something that shows just these cases where this policy would apply for when we're redoing the road and we would need to go to homeowners to put in a sidewalk?
We don't currently have it broken out that way, but if that would be helpful, we could certainly do that pretty easily, I think.
Okay.
And I think, so that's kind of like the whole point of this item is to maybe propose a change to the, I don't know where it would go, the complete streets policy, where we would have language about the cost sharing part of where we would cover that. Is that where we would make this change? Or
Yes, we certainly
clarification?
could. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have much like language on the cost part in the complete streets policy. Do you happen to know, Charles?
I think if we're going to do the cost for sidewalk installation specifically, the way we would do it is a recommendation to the Finance and Personnel Committee and to Common Council to specifically clarify that in the event that the city chooses to retrofit a street with sidewalks, that the cost will, for the initial installation, will be borne by the city, and then the homeowner will become the maintaining authority.
Okay.
That way, at least when we have the public hearing, well, we won't actually have to have the public hearing. We'll be able to say, you're not paying for it.
Right.
Since they won't be getting an assessment in that case. Ben, correct me if I'm wrong about that.
I was just going to chime in. So currently Public Works does have a policy, but it's more for sidewalk rehabilitation and replacement of existing. So we don't have one for, if it's installing a completely new in a place where it doesn't currently exist. We could, if we decide not to put it in the complete streets area, we could create essentially a sister document to this, which talks about installing new and who's bearing the cost of that.
Okay. Well, maybe that could be a future agenda item, is a staff recommendation on where that language would go and what the cost would be to the home. Or, that would be a city cost, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we can put that together.
Then we could vote on that. Is that okay, Charles?
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to put this on everybody's radar because it came up twice in landmarks on two separate things. Mountain Drive, Ben, as you may remember, they also have concerns.
Okay. Anything else on this topic?
Kirsten?
Really quickly, one way that we could learn, or we could ask Madison how they dealt with Old Middleton near the little holding pond, because I was a big part of that, and there were death threats to alders, actual death threats, and it got really bad. It went on for about 5 years. Mark Clear was the alder at the time of that area, and he could give some insight of how it was dealt with to try to de-escalate the situation. Because that was very, very, might as well learn from somebody who's already gone through it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Could we jump back to our, the PVT side of the agenda? I have forgotten exactly where we are.
So right now.
Okay. Item 5, that's, I think, the last joint item. Oh. Okay,
I didn't realize they don't match up 100 perfectly.
got it.
So you have to cut me off if I'm missing anything.
No,
It's
I
on your agenda.
don't think so.
So next agenda item is the Complete Streets Annual Report for both of us.
Okay.
Okay. Sure, I can go up here. So this item has already been reviewed by Ped Bike Transit, but they had requested some additional items be reviewed. And then I believe Alder Myers asked for like an update on our Complete Streets policy and all of that. So we decided to bring it to Public Works as well. And so this basically our Complete Streets policy, I think, was adopted in either 23 or 24. And so then the first time we had an annual report was in 2024. And then this is now our 2025. So you can see the 2 years and a comparison between the two. And so all of these metrics were in our Complete Streets policy, and we said that we would, track them every year. And so this is just the report that tracks a lot of those. To note, we did remove the Parmenter Street shared use path just because it's not being maintained all year round and because it's not, fully connected as a shared use path all the way through. The Ped Bike Transit Committee felt like it shouldn't be, considered a new shared use path fully. Another item that was slightly modified was the number of crashes was updated. So there was actually an additional pedestrian who was hit on Highland Way and Cedar Ridge Road. There was no apparent injury, and I think that's why the first time it didn't come up in the searches. So that was updated here. And then at the last meeting, Ped Bike Transit, we discussed removing performance measure 8 just because it's really tough for the city to track how much impervious surface we're removing. In fact, most times we aren't removing any. The example we provided was in 2024, we did the Lake Street boat launch, where the city, added the boat launch and then redid Lake Street. And so technically we added, or we removed impervious surface by adding in that park, but then we did add a lot more impervious surface by putting in sidewalks and all of that. So it was just really difficult for us to actually calculate, how much was removed and added. And so this was something that we're talking about removing. And then overall also engagement. We had a lot of questions about how, who are we trying to engage? And then especially with the social media posts and all of that, what is the point or how are we getting the information out? And so those are just the main takeaways. I'm happy to hear any other comments that Ped Bike Transit has or any comments that Public Works has as well.
Kirsten?
Daphne, didn't we also remove the raised crosswalk by Sauk Trail because it's not a true raised crosswalk?
I don't recall us removing that. I remember we discussed it, but I don't think we actually talked about removing it from there. But yeah, that's something we could.
Since it's 2 inches off the ground versus 6.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the committee has a decision.
I just hate us patting ourselves on the back for something that isn't actually what it is supposed to be.
I'm still very frustrated by that intersection as well. Walking past it in the winter, it was not as bad as I feared it would be in terms of snow and ice. Though I only was able to get out there once, but it's still, I have not even bothered when I've gotten rides from friends and we've driven through that and they just stop right on top of the table. I've not even bothered pointing it out because if they can't recognize that it's not a raised crosswalk before they hit it, then it has failed to do its job. So I am with Kirsten on kind of, honestly, I feel the same way about the Red Tail Ridge Race crosswalks. When I've walked there, they are not functionally raised crosswalks in actual implementation. And I realize we've got some engineering difficulties with some of the existing works and the civil side, but yeah, it's just very frustrating.
And Sean Alsrud has his hand raised again.
You can go ahead, Sean.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that a raised crosswalk is not designed as a speed deterrent for a vehicle. It's designed to increase the 2.5 foot height of the lowest pedestrian crossing. So we can't look at those as a way to reduce the speed of a vehicle. That's why you typically see them at a intersection where a vehicle would already be stopping. I just wanted to clarify that for everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I am aware of that, but I'm not talking about reducing speed. I'm talking about vehicles continuing to stop in the middle of the crosswalk, even though it is raised. That's what's so frustrating. The height advantage is functionally non-existent, it seems like. Charles.
Yeah, there is one thing that I'd like to see in the Complete Streets annual report, which is a plan to engage one decision-making body in the city, which to date, to my knowledge, has not been included, although legally speaking, I think they should have been. And that is the Stormwater Utilities Board of Directors. So the Public Works Committee is the Water Utilities Board of Directors. The Stormwater Utilities Board of Directors, I believe, and
Water Resources Board.
yeah, Water Resources Management. So what our Complete Streets policy in effect does when we're making design decisions is it consults the Ped Bike and Transit Committee for input, and it consults Public Works for input. But when we are putting in raised crosswalks, we are spending, in many cases, Stormwater Utility Board dollars from the stormwater utility in order to make the necessary storm sewer improvements. And I do think that including them for recommendations here is important because at least as a member of the Public Works Committee and as an alder, I don't necessarily feel comfortable rating that fund for hundreds of thousands of dollars without their input. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that was item number one. Item number two that I wanted to bring up in terms of the 2025 progress report is more of a forward-looking statement for future budget years. For instance, improvements along safety corridors, potential for grant matching funds, that sort of thing. You know, what actions did we take in fiscal year 2025 to prepare for fiscal year 2026?
Hey, do we have any other comments? Daphne, did you want us to take any action on these, like opportunities for improvement at the end here right now, or?
No, it's just for feedback, and so I'll incorporate the couple of things that Alder Myers noted, and then I'll also remove that that raised crosswalk. And then it's going to council next just for review. So Alder Myers, you'll be able to see those changes.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
And also, I did want to thank Public Works staff, planning staff, and the other participants in the staff pedestrian safety roundtable. Ben, thank you for getting that organized. It was necessary and long overdue, and we're already reaping the benefits of it, so thank you.
All right, thank you, Daphne. Do you have anything else for us?
So that's it for the Ped Bike Transit committee agenda. So I don't have any staff updates. If you want any, if you have any future agenda items you want the Ped Bike Transit committee to talk about, feel free to just email them to me or to Tad, and he'll email them to me. And then, yeah.
All right. We're at the end of our agenda, so Ped Bike and Transit Committee is adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks
for joining us. Public Works is gonna take a 5-minute break and resume at 8:35.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, it's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
This one?
You guys, thank you. So much. I can't.
Oh, the assessments, okay.
20 years.
We're gonna get started again. There we go. All right, thanks, everyone. We're back. We're on to agenda item number 7, temporary limited easement request, Conservancy Bend Phase 2.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take this. We also have Lane Brown from T-Wall Enterprises and Haven from T-Wall, if there's any questions. But this is a temporary limited easement request for the Conservancy Bend Phase 2 property or development. In your packet, you both have a formal letter request from T-Wall Enterprises as well as a draft of the formal agreement. And this, Daphne, if you wouldn't mind scrolling down a little bit in the exhibit. So this is directly west of their property. You can see it's kind of the triangle shaped to the east of the bike path, right? So right there where Daphne's circling with her mouse. This would be used for them for construction related activities to this development. Staff do not have concerns with this. I think the only stipulation which we communicated to T-Wall Enterprises was that the bike path is to not be used for construction activities and is to remain open for the majority or for all of the development. So that was staff's only kind of directive. And yeah, happy to answer any questions, or obviously representatives from T-Wall are here as well to answer questions.
Okay. My first question is, would they repair any damage done to the bike or the trail?
Yeah, yeah. If there's any damage to the bike path itself, we would ask the developer, or require the developer to make any repairs. And then as part of the agreement, they would have to repair or restore any damage done to the grassy area where they are asking for the easement in the first place.
Okay. Charles.
Two questions. First, has this been to other city committees or something similar? And well, 3 parts. Second, if yes, what were those committee recommendations? And last, has this been through the city attorney's review process already?
Yeah, I can start answering that question. And Kevin Short from Parks and Recreation is here as well. So a similar request has been made to the Conservancy Lands Committee. And that is for area to the north of their development. And that's on Conservancy land. So that has been discussed at that committee. And I can let Kevin chime in on that discussion. And then in terms of review by city attorney, yes, this has gone to Matt Fleming, our city attorney.
Kevin Short, Assistant Director with Parks and Rec. Conservancy Lands looked at a request for temporary limited easement for the area north, an easement about 15 feet to the north of the property line. And the committee requested that staff work with developer to come up with contingencies for approval of that agreement.
And what were the results of those conversations that staff have had with the developer?
Ongoing, I would say.
Okay. So are we being asked to just look at the easement on the one side, like the west side?
Correct. Yep. This is solely
separately from what the conservative lands.
Correct.
Committee is
Correct.
doing?
Yep. Okay. This is the only request in front of you is for the western side next to the bike path. Nothing related to the Conservancy property.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I knew that something similar had gone before Conservancy Lands. I wanted to make sure that this wasn't an attempt to get a different bite at the same apple.
Nope, this is a separate request.
Okay, thank you.
Mary?
Yeah, just like generally assuming that temporary easement requests do come up with developments. Can you just explain what the typical timeline is, like when those would come up before construction, during planning? Like, when would they come up for this reason?
Typically during planning or ahead of plan or during plan review. Right, kind of ahead of construction starting is usually when we would kind of see these requests. And then in terms of timeline for the actual easement, so this one in particular, they're asking would run until either the first occupancy permit is issued by our building inspection department or until the end of December of this year of 2026.
Oh, you have a follow-up?
Just a
Mary?
quick follow-up. Yeah, I can't remember the elevation in this side, but is there any like stormwater runoff get next to the bike path that they would have to worry about if they were putting scaffolding or up or something like that?
So not in this parcel that they're requesting. Further west of the bike path is a stormwater area, but not the area they're requesting.
Charles?
Yeah, so I'm generally comfortable with this, but I'd be a lot more comfortable with it if the agreement specified an amount to be held in escrow for the restoration of the grass to status quo ante, as well as for potential damages to the bike path. So I'd ask for an amendment to specify an escrow amount based on reasonable expectations of construction and restoration costs.
Well, we could, like ask for an revised one for the next meeting, or you can, make a motion, include that in your motion for this, for approval tonight.
Yeah, I'd move to amend the agreement to include the escrow amount to staff satisfaction, specifically the Public Works Director or designee and the Parks and Recreation Director or designee of same, leaving and City Attorney for drafting, but otherwise to approve it with that contingency. Sorry if that wasn't super clear. I can restate. If,
I understood.
Is everyone on the committee clear?
I got it.
We're approving it
Yeah.
with the condition that Charles mentioned.
Yeah, it's clear to me.
Okay. Understood. All right. So we have a motion.
One thing I'd like to bring up, just, it's more safety. I think OSHA 29 CFR Part 1926 deals with fall protection. Seeing that there's scaffolding going up adjacent to a public means of throughway, just abide by that, maybe have the city attorney look at it. I know a lot of times they put netting so hammers and stuff don't fall on kids, whatnot.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay. So that would be a recommendation to, not part of this motion, but a recommendation to T-Wall and the city to monitor that.
Yep.
Okay. Does anybody want to second the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of passing the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Gayatri, did you say aye? Are you in favor?
I did, yeah.
Okay, sorry, it's a little quiet in here for people online. All right, the motion passes.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, next agenda item. Getting close to the end here. Liaison briefings. No discussion or action. So Mary, do you have anything from Conservancy Lands Committee? Part of your committee's here, I see.
Yes, and yeah, it was our last Conservancy Lands meeting. Spoke about this particular easement request in the north of the parcel, 15 feet for a significant amount of time. Public Works did come up several times. I did reach out to Ben and Luke to let them know what was discussed. So what I'd like to share as the liaison with the city or with our committee was that it was suggested by T-Wall's representatives that it was the city engineer's responsibility to have informed them that the land next to their parcel is zoned as a conservancy. That was a conversation point. They said they weren't aware the land directly next to the development was zoned as such. And to the best of Luke's knowledge, there were comments as far back as 2024 regarding no construction activities on the conservancy lands. So I just, because city engineer, that term was brought up several times, that he was looped into the discussions, noting that if and when there is development next to conservancy lands, that should be stated early on, which it was as far back as 2024. Typically when planning receives a submission that includes preliminary plans, these are notes from Luke, engineering would look at that from a high level and that would come up, which it did. Additionally, one of the sticking points on the meeting was that there was damage inflicted by MG&E in the city's conservancy land beyond the boundary of the T-Walls parcel in close proximity to the mature red oak present on the site. This damage included tracks from the machine, a scoop left on the land, and an erosion sock left on the land. And then the question that I just wanted to pass on to the committee that lingered in this discussion was, who is responsible for managing MG&E for utility purposes, since would that fall on Public Works? Would that be something that the developer needs to be more on top of? It was said that MG&E had permission granted to access conservancy land for public utility purposes. And that seemed questionable at the time. And I did want to follow up with city staff about that, and that the MG&E easement would have been entirely on the private parcel and wouldn't have impeded upon conservancy property. And I wanted to bring this up to Public Works so that we know in the future if there are other areas where the utilities cross over onto conservancy land, where those are, and if we have had problems with those easements in the past, how MG&E has communicated their understanding of those boundaries, and something that we just need to keep on our minds going forward. And this particular discussion topic was not completed in its motions, I would say. There was an alternative motion set up, and so as Kevin mentioned, the conversation is ongoing for this particular thing.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Next would be Don. Did you have any meetings for water?
He was just, we should try and maintain better coordination with this group.
That's your job, right?
Yeah, that's my job. That's my job. So I'm coordinating.
Okay. All right. We could perhaps do a joint meeting with them sometime too. They're so much fun.
We could, yeah, we could.
All right. Thank you. Next agenda item is future meeting agenda items. We'll start with Tim, work our way back. Anything? No? Mary?
If we want to talk about public utilities and conservancy lands and where those might overlap, I think that might be something to come up as developments pop up in the future.
Okay.
And also perhaps talking about, I am curious to hear from the city too, like if we have the agreement with MG&E in this particular situation, whose responsibility is it to protect the conservancy lands in this case?
Okay. Ben, did you get that?
Yeah, so public utility easements on CLC property.
All right.
I got nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
Charles?
Yeah, I have two. One is MG&E turning on lights, specifically on Parmenter Street, but also in other situations. The other, and how staff in the city can communicate with MG&E, how next steps for follow-ups, timelines, strategies for getting MG&E to be more responsive to staff follow-ups. since I know they're being done. And a joint meeting with the Water Resources Management and Stormwater Utility Commission, specifically for the purpose of discussing acceptable costs to be incurred by the utility for pedestrian safety improvements. It would help us if we had guidance from them.
Okay. Thank you. Gayatri, do you have anything?
No, nothing from my end.
Okay. And there's nothing from me, so. The time is 8:51 and we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.